coming to you from sunny Denver, Colorado. Get ready for your weekly dose of unscripted conversation all about the housing industry in the Centennial State. Although their specialty is in mortgages, in this show they are transcending lending. And now, your host, the most unconventional guys in conventional lending, the Mortgage In-Laws.
Welcome to the show. Another episode of Transcending Lending. I'm Brent Blankenberg.
Dillon Herrera.
And thanks for tuning in today. This episode of the podcast, we have a friend of ours on who's also a client, closed a loan a couple months back, bought a new house, Mike Brockway. And Mike also is the owner of Denver Tent Rentals, which is the sponsor of this podcast. So go to denvertentrentals.com for all your tent rental needs. If you're looking to have an event, wedding, anything like that, you can find those there. Mike will give you a good price. Tell him that we sent you, and he'll give you a discount, the good guy discount, matter of fact.
Good guy discount. Yeah, we kind of started this podcast a little abruptly, so just wanted to record an intro and say thanks for listening. Again, this is Transcending Lending. Dillon Herrera, Brent Blankenberg. You can find us on Mortgage In-Laws on Instagram or either of us on Facebook by our names.
Yep, and enjoy the show. As always, reach out to us. Let us know if you want us to have a specific guest on or want to hear about a specific topic. So enjoy the show. But Dillon, did you ever think about real estate? When did you ever even think about starting real estate in the real estate industry?
I didn't. Really no time. I don't know why, but I always thought it was a good idea to invest in real estate. So with Commerce, our Commerce City house, we never really talked about it too much, but I was always all in for whatever reason, for really no reason at all. But I always thought it was a safer investment. I think that's probably just, I was naive a little bit, but it's really worked out.
Your parents' house is sweet. Have they owned that since you were a kid?
You know what's crazy?
What?
I feel like, so your parents, your dad and mom have made a lot more money than my dad in his life, right? So they moved around a lot. So they were constantly paying these real estate or, realtor fees, and I don't even know what it was, but they still have, I would say, roughly $150,000 on their mortgage, I think is what it is. And my parents have their house paid off. And I don't know if that's literally just because they stayed in the house and never moved. I wonder, I feel like your parents should have that. I mean,
Did they start with a 30-year mortgage? Mm-hmm. And they just paid it more?
Well, so they started with a 30-year, and I don't know when, I think it was about 10 years ago, they refinanced to a 15, and they're getting close. My dad's dad died, so he got a small chunk of money that he's paying it off with, but I think it's $20,000 left.
Yeah, no, a lot of people will refinance houses or sell them by, and then they'll just keep getting into 30-year notes, and then they just make the 30-year payment, nothing more. But I'm a firm believer. I bought my last house when I was 29, so when I'm 59, I'd like to pay that house off. So the theory being, if you refinance in the future, even if you refinance into a 30-year loan again, you make the payments that would amortize or pay off the loan in however many years it takes. So that's kind of my goal at this point in time, is just to pay these houses off within 30 years of when I originally bought them,
Which is smart, but, well, I mean, yeah, I don't know, dude, I'm just thinking kind of out loud, but when you talk about the interest rate and how it is so low, it's hard not to just kind of let that sit there and put any other money, if you had some extra cash, put that somewhere else rather than into your mortgage. In the same breath, I think if you pay an extra payment a year, it drops from a 30-year to I don't know what it was, a 21-year. It's something significant, but
23 years or something, cut 7 years off.
It's a interesting way of thought. I don't know what the best way is.
What's your thought on this, Mike? What's your philosophy on how you think do you think you'll ever pay houses off? Will you always keep that debt because it's good debt?
I think it's good debt as long as you're covering it with cash flow or with income. Depends if it's a rental or your primary. If you're able to cover that with alternative sources, then you're in a good shape. Me personally, to answer the question, I'd probably, as much as it sounds great to reduce the 30-year mortgage to a 23-year mortgage or whatever the actual number is, I like to have the cash in the bank to continue to leverage that to create more properties that are cash flow positive. So I think just the ability to put that cash in the bank down on maybe a new property or leverage that further instead of paying off your existing mortgage, at the end of the day is going to create more cash flow for you.
Yeah.
That's my thoughts, at least.
Yeah, and that's I think you have a finance background, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so me too, and that's kind of the pure way of thinking of finances is you look at what has the lowest interest rate and you keep that around the longest, or like Dylan in your parents' case, instead of paying off a mortgage that might have been like a 4% interest rate, if they would have taken that money and invested in something that made them 8%, then they would have been doing twice as well with their money than paying off the mortgage. So that's where this whole philosophy. Then again, I have some friends who just like to pay off debts, even if it's a 1.5% car loan. They just don't want to have debt, and for them that works. It's financially not the most leveraged situation, or
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I'm coming from a finance background. I absolutely hate interest, and I hate the idea of paying interest. So that's how I actually started off with my first couple loans. I wanted to get that loan paid off as soon as possible, but now that you see what leverage can do for you in investing in real estate, I think I've completely done a 180 when it comes down to that. I'm okay with paying interest if it's eventually going to eventually I'll have an asset at the end of the road, end of 30 years, 15 years, whatever it might be, and I'm getting paid cash flow every month.
and you're writing off the interest.
Exactly,
every year
yeah.
on
It's
your
great
taxes, too.
tax write-up too, so that does not hurt the case at all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it seems like, so you're not really investing in like a 401k. I mean, this is kind of your retirement plan.
Yeah, so that's a really good question too. I mean, I've worked in, financial services my whole career, and ever since I had an internship when I was doing my MBA, I did a concentration in finance, got an internship for a really large firm, a Goldman Sachs subsidiary. So I've always worked in the industry, and I personally think that there's more value investing in real estate than the stock market. I mean, I like to see those checks coming every month. I like to know that physical asset's going to be there, unless you have a house fire or whatever. But then you insure that assets and you get paid out. So I just feel a little better about that house being there, that house creating cash flow, versus these horror stories you hear about clients or these big market crashes and people losing half their portfolio overnight. And really, what happens with that is those individuals will sell at the bottom. They'll lock those losses in because it's just people have habits, unfortunately.
Yeah, and it almost seems like when the market gets to the bottom, then people are all conventional wisdom is out the window. They won't even talk to their financial advisor and ask, what should I do at this point in time? It's like, I'm screwed. My portfolio just got cut in half. So obviously they're selling, and that's not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to buy low, sell high.
Yeah.
So real quick, Mike, so can you explain kind of your real estate situation? Because we just helped you buy your second primary house, and I believe you're renting a portion of that out. So what do you own 2 properties right now, and what are you doing with those?
Yeah, so I own 2 properties right now. I'm just going back. I've always wanted to own my own house. I mean, I moved out to Denver here a few years ago and rented for 1 year to kind of get a feel for the area, the Boulder, Denver area, Front Range, and I didn't want to wait any longer to buy a house. So I just bought a house that I thought was in close proximity to Denver, in close proximity to Boulder. It's about halfway between the two, right off the highway. And I honestly, when I first bought that house, I almost regretted it because I thought I, went in too soon or kind of jumped the gun. I didn't really shop around a whole lot, but looking back on it, it was a great investment. It's close to the highway, and it's producing a ridiculous amount of cash flow relative to what I thought I could do. I'm getting a little creative with how I'm collecting rent and kind of tenants I have in there, more of a roommate situation. But it turned out to be a great investment, and that house has appreciated quite a bit in the past couple of years. And again, at the time, I wasn't so sure about throwing money at the Denver housing market with the increase that we've seen in prices over the past 5-10 years.
Yeah, a lot of people are concerned because the market has been going up. I was just telling a story about how one of my best friends for 4 years now has been saying, "Oh, I'll buy a house when the market drops again. The values are too high." But had he bought 4 years ago, he would, maybe have added 30%, 40, 50% to the value of his house in that amount of time just by living in it. And actually now he really knows that and understands that because his girlfriend bought a condo about 3 years ago, and it's gone up in value enough to where they refinanced last year, did a cash out, paid off all their other debts. So they just created all this money to pay off their cars, their trucks, their credit cards. Every single piece of debt they had was paid off with the refinance because their house had gone up in value. So all they had to do was keep making their mortgage payments every month, and now all of their debt is gone. And I can't say that this will happen for everyone. Obviously, the market could do anything. She was also a veteran, so she was doing a VA loan. But
she also got a awesome interest rate being a veteran. So.
Oh, yeah. And they did it at the exact right time when interest rates were, I mean, I think she got like a 3.25 on a cash out refinance. So they're sitting pretty. But that's common sentiment.
Yeah, that's a great story to tell. And you kind of relate that back to the stock market and investing in general. I mean, I've spoken to so many clients out there that have, been afraid about what's going on in the market. They've sold out of their equities and got into cash, and you kind of miss that upswing in the market or the uptick. And really, same case for real estate. I mean, you can't wait. You can't sit on the sidelines and wait for the prices to go down. I mean, it's a long-term investment, just like your financial portfolio, just like your retirement accounts. You can't be worried about what it's doing, going to do tomorrow or next month or, even next year. This is a long-term investment that you're going to be holding for at least 30 years. I mean, that's at least my vision for my assets. But just like your portfolio, I'm sure most of you out there have some type of investment, some type of investment account. I mean, if you keep that money invested in the market, don't touch it, let it grow over time, I mean, you'll have 8-10% returns just by investing in equities. Yes, it might be a little scary when you see that market drop and your portfolio take a big hit. Might also be scary if the housing market crashes and all your houses take a big hit, or you're afraid of that actually happening if you buy in now. But this is one of the risks that come with investing. But if you stick through it and keep that long-term time horizon, that long-term goal in place and in mind, stay invested, you'll become wealthier over time.
So I personally did not get a degree at all, so I don't have a finance background, at all. So just out of curiosity between Brent and Mike, just a quick question. So the overall market, it obviously has these downturns like you're talking about, but the overall picture is it's always going up. So even when it comes out of that that slump, it's still going to end up at a better spot, at least from historically. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, as a financial advisor, you're much more regulated on what you can and can't say. So coming from that background, I still am always very careful to say, because obviously we don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
A meteor might hit Denver, Colorado in 10 years, and now this real estate's worth nothing. So anything could happen, but based off of what has happened previously, if you look at the long term, it's always going up. I mean, there's the ups and downs in the middle, but if you buy and hold, I mean, think about it. John and Mindy's house, I think the person owned the house for like 30 years before, or they owned it for 30 years and then sold it to John and Mindy, and I think it went from like a $50,000 house to a $350,000 house or something. So you're going to be paying rent or you're going to be paying a mortgage. Regardless, you're going to be paying one of the two. So might as well at the end of 30 years have something that's worth at least as much value as when you bought it, probably a heck of a lot more. I mean, you can never guarantee anything, but
for sure. I was just kind of curious. I know I've heard that, I've heard that before, so curious.
Yeah, there's volatility in anything. I mean, you could lose your job tomorrow, but you can't live your life being afraid of that happening. You just have to go all in, invest, and really just hope for the best and kind of trust if you're trusting the stock market, you can trust the housing market just as well, I think.
Yeah.
That is one kind of that's a funny guideline to me, is like, do you have to have a 3-year continuance of employment or income coming in? But no one knows, like you said, tomorrow. So you can close on a house, you can lose your job tomorrow. Hopefully you figure out how to pay your mortgage, but it is just like an interesting guideline that you have to have a 3-year continuance of income.
Yeah. Yeah, it's such a strange thing, and one of the things, actually, I think it was when I was doing your guys' loan on your Commerce City property, but talking about leases, a car lease and paying off a car lease, and that was when I learned the lesson of you can't pay off a car lease and not count the payment. The underwriter will not let you remove a lease payment even if you pay off the entire lease, because the way they see it is, well, when that lease eventually ends, they're going to need a new car, and then they're going to have a new lease anyways. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, you really are trying to play fortune teller here and say, like, in a year when this thing comes due, I mean, who knows? Maybe they don't buy another car at all. Maybe they get a lease that's 4 times more expensive than this one, and we didn't qualify them with that. I mean, it's a really interesting thing when we start trying to, like, pretend to know what's going to happen in the future.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
I mean, Jade kind of, took the driver's seat as far as getting the mortgage documents, and so I didn't have too much to do with that transaction at all, but I do remember that. It's interesting.
So I want to get a little bit into numbers here, if you're okay with it, Mike. I'll reciprocate. I'll also talk some numbers on my end of what I'm seeing if you're willing to. But
Sure.
Just to give an idea here, so let's talk more, because we really want to talk more about house hacking, if you will. So give us a little bit of background of your understanding of house hacking, and then just a brief overview of your current picture of house hacking.
Yeah, love to. So, I mean, I think, again, it comes back to the reason I got into real estate. I mean, I didn't want to pay someone else's mortgage, but I wanted to own my own house. Once I owned my own house, I didn't even want to pay my own mortgage. So, there's this thing, house hacking, more or less. And really the reason I started doing this whole house hacking thing, essentially, real estate in Colorado, in the Denver area and the Boulder area, is extremely expensive. But I wanted to be able to buy a house and own a house in the area. So I lightly spoke to a couple of friends, said, hey, if I bought a house, would you be willing to move in? We'll split the mortgage and we'll go from there, and we can have our own place. Instead of paying someone else's mortgage, it was kind of a win-win for everyone. I paid less towards my mortgage, they paid less in rent, everyone was happy, and we had a nice place to live in. But we kind of call our own. Long story short, one of the guys got cold feet, one of the guys ended up moving in, but I charged him very, dirt cheap rent to move in, because again, it made sense for both of us. I was getting some of my mortgage paid for. Eventually he wanted to, live in a hipper part of town or downtown. He wanted to live downtown Boulder, this guy. My other buddy he actually took a job in Denver, so he wanted to be downtown Denver. He's willing to pay the, $1,800 in rent that you're paying down there, which is ridiculous to me. But eventually I had new folks move in that I didn't know before I met them on Craigslist. And I think the beauty of house hacking when you're living in the house is these aren't really true tenants, at least in my eyes. I mean, these are people that you're kind of vetting. And at first I didn't run background checks and credit checks. I do that now for every single tenant. But I basically interviewed folks that I met on Craigslist that were looking for roommates. And in Colorado and in Denver, I mean, everyone's moving here from other states. There's a lot of people looking for roommates that just want to be here. So as far as that influx of people coming to the city or coming to the state, it was pretty easy to find tenants that were looking to meet new people. And I think it comes back to, people will say garbage in, garbage out. Put a pretty good Craigslist ad out there saying, hey, young professional, work in finance.
Handsome as can be.
Didn't want to lie on the Craigslist ad,
Hygienic. He smells nice too.
Is that Aquadisia? Is that what it's called?
How'd you know?
I'm serious. Is it?
No.
Okay.
Close though. But anyway, I don't want to give away all my secrets. But back to the house hacking. I basically got some solid guys in there that were young professionals. I think I'm a pretty good judge of character. And the house I bought, I wanted the space too. I mean, I grew up in a smaller town in upstate New York, and I was, always had a, decent space, decent land, whatnot. So I wanted a house with a lot of square footage, and I got a 3,000 square foot house, 4 bedrooms with an office, so could be 5. But I was renting eventually 3 rooms out, and I was living in the master bedroom. And at that point in time, my friends had moved out. I didn't really need to give people a big cut on rent, so I was renting the rooms for a little closer to market value. And I was actually got to the point in time where I was actually paying for my entire mortgage, plus some. So I was not only living for free and having my tenants, in this case, my roommates, pay for my mortgage, but I was actually making a little bit more money at the end of the month, living for free, paying down this huge mortgage that I had, and just being able to live a better lifestyle with in my free time with all the extra money I had.
Yeah, just the fact that you're paying off your mortgage, I mean, that's people's biggest debt liability. So the fact that you don't have that payment every month is huge. So that was your house before you moved into this your new primary.
Did you guys want to hit on numbers at all?
Yeah.
Yeah. So on
let's
this
talk
house,
about that one.
and then also let's start with there.
So let's talk about mortgage. I believe you do not escrow your taxes and insurance on that one.
No, I chose not to do that. I mean, I just being a finance guy, like I want to have control of my money. I want to see where it's going, and I don't mind, paying my homeowner's insurance up front, right? So I chose to go against that route, and I also chose to put 20% down because I wanted to avoid that PMI. So I went that route. So I mean, my mortgage payment's a little lower right now than it would be if I didn't put the full 20% down. I understand that, we're in an expensive market. You may not be able to put down that 20% every single time, but this was my situation. So I mean, just really quick, house I bought was $335, which I thought was ridiculously expensive. They had it listed for $350, and personally, I like to shop for real estate in the off season because I think there's less competition. Yes, there's less inventory, but there's some opportunity for you to go out there and throw some low balls offers out there. I mean, don't be afraid to be told no. It's going to save you $30,000 or whatever it might be. Even $10,000, $5,000. It's worth.
Yeah, and amortized over 30 years, you're saving a lot over the life of the loan.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, my mortgage came out to around $1,200 after 20% down, and if you think about insurance and
probably
taxes,
$100 a month for insurance.
Yeah, roughly $100 for
probably $125 or something for taxes, maybe. Yeah,
about that. So I mean, expenses, I guess $1,400. And I was renting rooms out between $650 and $800 a month. So I was making a little bit of money at the end of the day living there and renting these three rooms out and essentially living for free and getting my mortgage paid for. So at that concept and that when I realized how powerful that was, I was like, you know what, this is kind of addicting. I'm gonna do this again. So
just on that primary, you made, let's say on average $700 a room. So you're renting out 3 rooms, living in one. You're making $1,200 or $2,100 a month. Mortgage is $1,400 after taxes and insurance.
Mm-hmm.
So you're profiting about $700 there. And then you move into this new house. You rent out the master for about $700. Now you're literally making double the mortgage.
How many bedrooms was it though? It's 4 bedrooms.
Yeah, 4 bedrooms.
So you were renting out 3 of them.
3 at the time.
Right.
When I moved out.
So you were making $2,100 when you moved out, like when you were living there.
Yeah.
You were pulling in $2,100. Is that right? Approximately.
So 3 rooms at $700 a pop.
Yeah.
Yep.
So around like.
And then $1,400 is your. So you were making that much money while you were still living in the house.
Yeah. So he literally moves into a new primary, rents out that new master, and makes about roughly $2,800 a month. Mortgage, taxes, and insurance is about $1,400. So you're profiting close to for your mortgage.
All right.
You're paying for that mortgage and.
All right. So
you're cash flow positive.
So you're cash flow positive.
Like $600 a month.
Will cost $600 a month while living there. So now at that point in time, your effective monthly housing expense was a negative $600.
Yes.
You were making money. It wasn't a housing expense. It was a housing benefit or asset, if you will.
Right.
All right. So that was up until when did you buy? November?
November, December time frame. Yeah.
November, December. So take us now to January. You buy the new primary residence. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I mean, I liked the situation I was in. I was getting paid to own a house and live there for free. But eventually I wanted to have my own place, and I knew that I could do this with another property and be in a situation where I was having less roommates. I mean, all the guys and the one girl I lived with at the time, they're all cool. It's a good situation. I mean, the kitchen got a little dirty once in a while, but whatever. I was getting paid. So I bought my second house, and I was kind of looking for a similar situation because I look for certain things. One of the things I look at is a finished basement because it adds a lot of square footage, it adds a lot of space, and there's obviously more bedrooms in that basement that you could rent out. And the power of more bedrooms, I think, is key when you're trying to do something like this. Mm-hmm. So I was, looking around closer to Denver because I worked in Denver downtown. I wanted to be closer to my office at the time, and of course, Denver's ridiculously expensive. So I was looking in up and coming areas around the Denver metro area. that I thought, weren't fully appreciated, like maybe like the Highlands or other areas of Colorado. So I guess at the end of the day, the house I chose was actually, it's a single family, a lot smaller, only 1,600 or 1,800 square feet. But it's actually set up into, it's a single family, and it's actually set up into 2 separate units.
But it's not legally a duplex, which is...
Like it doesn't have 2 separate addresses.
I'm not an attorney, but
it's one address.
Yes.
Exactly.
Okay.
So there's 2 separate entrances, and it's set up in a way that I can rent to a tenant and have my own place. So what I did was I rented out the one half of it to a tenant. It's in the Globeville area of Colorado, and he's paying $1,150 a month. At this point in time, and I just bought a house, roughly 2 years ago, my first house, so I didn't have $60,000, $80,000 for the down payment, so I actually only put down 3% through that Home Ready program that Brent actually told me about. Mm-hmm. And not to make his head too big here today, but I've actually there's power in shopping around, regardless of what you're doing. I mean, if you're looking for a home, you want to shop around. If you're looking for a contractor, shop around. If you're looking for a mortgage, definitely shop around, because this is a program that my previous lender did not tell me about at all. I bet he wasn't even aware of it. No. But this is a great program in that I only put 3% down. There's reduced PMI. I'm sure Brett can speak to it a little more. But
and we have talked about this program because we're big fans of it. So
and also a big thing is you owned another house while you closed on this one.
Exactly. Yeah, and I was able to use those signed leases as income, essentially. So I was able to leverage my day job and the income I had there, and not worry about this other mortgage I had to pay at the same time. So I bought this new place. $287 was the purchase price. Guy had it listed for $290. He was still doing some improvements for it. It was actually a flip, which I don't like to buy flips because I think that the individual that's flipping the house is taking advantage of the profits he's making there. But it was in a good location. It's like 10 minutes from downtown and 5 minutes from Rhino. So it didn't really get any better than that as far as price point was concerned. And I'm renting out the second half of the second half of the house, which is paying for more than half the mortgage. That rent on that half of the house is $1,150 a month. It's not, you're not living in the Highlands or downtown, but you're paying a lot less than what those guys are paying as well, as far as tenants living in those areas. So, if you find the right person, and again, I listed the ad as, we're living in the same single family house, but I did list the ad, the Craigslist ad, as a roommate. Tried to kind of vet people out, but really kind of gave it to the first person that kind of jumped on it, and he seemed like a really good guy, and so far so good. So if you're looking at the numbers again, my payment plus PMI plus taxes plus insurance is around $1,700.
Okay.
And this guy's paying $1,150 a month.
Okay.
What was your first mortgage?
First mortgage was $1,200. That's without escrow, so
about $1,400. That's right.
$1,400 as far as the expenses on that.
So what I have here is you're between the 2 mortgages and taxes, insurance, and all that. You're paying about $3,100 a month between the 2, and then you're bringing in around $3,950, and you're also, keeping those properties and investing in your future as far as paying down that mortgage every month. So that's pretty.
Yeah. So you picked up the second property. You got slightly more cash flow. Now you have probably another $150 of cash flow than you did at the previous. But the big kicker is that in 30 years, you have a whole new house in Globeville, which in 30 years, I will be so curious to see what Globeville looks like.
Yeah.
It is not the most beautiful area of town right now, but Mike is employing multiple strategies here. Not only a cash flow strategy, but you're also able to employ other strategies. In this case, you're buying a house that's going to appreciate in value, or at least that you think is going to appreciate in value. So you buy in an area like Baker, Sunnyside, Globeville, these places where their location is awesome, and it's all about location, location, location. But they are not, these neighborhoods aren't nice yet. They're not being turned over yet, but eventually they will be. So in addition to having a little bit more cash flow by buying the second property, you're also setting yourself up with basically a funded 401k in 30 years.
Yeah, you got a pretty big nest egg. And I think that I just want to highlight one fact here. I was actually in the process of thinking about making a career change, and I mean, this concept conceptually makes sense to myself and Brent and Dillon here, but when I was telling this to guys I worked with and friends and family and saying like, hey, I might switch jobs, but I'm also going to buy a house. Everyone thought I was absolutely crazy, right? Like, why would you buy a house when you're going to potentially leave your job or switch jobs and you have no, guaranteed income? Well, I bought that house because now I have 2 houses and I'm making more money every single month. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of a no-brainer when you looked at the financials and put it on paper.
Yeah. Making more money and you get more space. Like you said, you're not just renting out all the rooms, you're renting out a separate space, so you have your own living space, which is huge.
Yeah. So my cash flow for the real estate, when I say making more money, that increased. I now have my own space, 2 houses instead of one, that's going to set to appreciate hopefully, and one that's already appreciated quite a bit over the past couple of years.
Yeah, so I haven't spoken a whole lot about the specifics of my situation, but I think this is probably a good time to kind of parallel that situation. I'm going to keep my second home out of this completely in the mountains just because that one's kind of separate, but I did something very, very similar to Mike as far as I lived in a primary residence and I converted that to an investment property in the last month basically. And now I moved into a new place where I'll be renting out the basement as well. So I'll go through my numbers quickly because I wasn't actually even renting out a bedroom previously. So my mortgage at my old house, now it's an investment property, it was my primary residence, was about $1,850 a month. So between me and Kim, that was our total monthly housing cost. Now we have bought the new house. The new house is $2,300 per month is the mortgage. On the old house, we are renting it out to some guys for $2,000. We could have actually gotten more than that, but I decided I wanted to keep the detached garage to myself, so I used that for my own storage purposes and whatnot. But suffice to say, I could have gotten $300 to $500 more if I was willing to rent that out. But we'll leave that out of the calculation. So now I'm cash positive $150 a month on that property.
Plus appreciation.
Plus garage rental space that I would be buying rental space otherwise. So now on the $2,300 a month, this new house that we got, not only did we upgrade our situation greatly, I mean, we have more closet space, we have a nicer house, a nicer kitchen. I mean, it's just a huge upgrade. But in addition, we're renting it out, the basement on Airbnb. So in my case, it's similar to Mike's to where it's a separate entrance to the basement. You can't actually get into my house from the basement, just like in Mike's situation. So we're really big on this property type. And I suspect that in average over 12 months, I'll receive $1,400 a month on Airbnb. I honestly think that might be a little bit low, but we're going to go with that number. So effectively, our housing cost after Airbnb on this property is $900, and we're cash flow positive $150 on the other property, which leaves me and Kim's portion $750. $375 a month is our monthly housing cost. That doesn't take into account the other second home that we have in the mountains that we're making a lot of money on. But basically, we cut our household housing cost down by $1,100 just by.
So let me get this straight, Brent. This is what you're telling me. So what you're telling me is you now have 2 houses. You're living in a much nicer situation, and you and Kim combined are only paying $750 a month out of pocket.
Exactly. So, and the cool thing is, just like you, I use the exact same Fannie Mae Home Ready 3% down program. I bought this house for $420, so 3% of that is just under $13,000. We had the sellers pay for all of our closing costs, so basically we came to the table with just that 3%. So we'll just call it $13,000. So if you take into account the fact that I'm now paying $1,100 less every month on my housing costs, that is 9 months or so that it's going to take for me to recoup that $13,000 that we put down for down payment. I mean, and then after that, everything is basically, you're in the black on that investment. You're no longer in the red. It's really quite crazy. So
yeah,
I've had a similar experience, and I know that Dillon is super excited having heard these conversations between me and Mike and various other friends we have of the money that can be made out there on
Yeah, I mean, especially the short-term rentals, renting out a part of your house and covering a portion of the mortgage. So right now I have a rental house in Utah. It's a long-term rental, and we cash flow about $600 there. But it really doesn't offset too much when you have a $2,200 mortgage here. So if we were a little more strategic in what we bought, and we bought something that had a separate entrance or mother-in-law suite, walkout basement, something to rent it out to either Airbnb, short-term rentals, or a long-term rental, then that would make, as far as our mortgage expense every month, much lower. So stay tuned. I'm sure I'll be finding something here in the near future, selling this house and getting into something that has that potential.
Yeah. But we met with a buddy this morning, Jerry, who Mike also knows. And hearing about his situation, he's kind of similar to Mike, where he lives in his primary residence and he's renting out to 4 or 5 other residents the other bedrooms in the house. And he's making a good chunk of change every month. And it just made me think, let's just say there's 5 people living in that house. One of the 5, so 20% of the people, one of the 5 is the owner. And the other 4 out of the 5 are the renters that are paying the owner's mortgage. If I was one of those renters who was paying someone else's mortgage, I would be thinking right now, I mean,
not a lot of people think like that, though. And I mean, I guess that's why this makes sense and works, is because not a lot of people think that way, and they're okay with renting. And obviously a huge benefit with being in the Denver area is rents are so high.
Oh yeah.
So you can cover your mortgage. You can profit, with renting out a portion of your house. You can actually make money, with your house, which is just absolutely insane. So we live in a great place to do something like this, and you guys are obviously taking advantage of it. I'm excited to in the near future, but we live in a good place too.
Yeah, and at the same time, let me be clear and say both Mike and Jerry in their situations, it's not like they're overcharging their tenants or anything. Those people are going to be paying rent regardless. So really it is, everybody's still winning in this situation. These people are going to be paying rent regardless. So it's not like you're actually taking advantage of someone or anything like that by renting out a room to them. You're providing a service, and hopefully it's a good living situation and better than they would get elsewhere. So it really is win-win for everyone.
And it actually is more affordable. I mean, if I were a single guy and I moved to Denver and I rented out a 1-bedroom apartment, I'm paying $1,500 a month. Yes, I have a kitchen, but it's still $1,500 a month. So for those people who can afford it and are okay with, a shared living space as far as a kitchen and living with people, and I think a lot of people in this shared economy kind of thrive for that anyways. They like meeting people and just being surrounded by people in general. So in a lot of cases, and I'd say in most cases, it's just more affordable and honestly a better experience too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And I think that it definitely was a win-win when I had some friends move in there. And it comes back to you want to have quality tenants too, which I haven't been doing this for a long time, and I hate the term landlord or to be called a landlord. These were just more my roommates in this situation, and it was a win-win for everyone. I mean, I would rather have someone in there, a roommate paying me rent or a tenant paying me rent that was below market, but having a solid individual in there that you don't have to worry about, are they going to pay next month's rent? Are they going to trash the house? Are they going to throw a party, or can I not trust them? I'd rather have quality young professionals in my living with me or in my rentals that I can trust and I can rely on, and just have that peace of mind at the end of the day. And sure, I might be making a few $100 less every month, but it's worth it. Mm-hmm. And I also want to make a point that, there's this spectrum, Jerry and then myself and Brent, we kind of operate and carry this out different areas of the spectrum. I mean, you can have a 5-bedroom house and have 4 roommates or whatever it might be, and you can make $1,000 a month and not have any expenses or living expenses. Or you can be in my situation when I first started off, living for free, making about $700 a month. Or you can be in Brent's situation where you're not living for free, but you're basically paying a very discounted portion of your mortgage just by leveraging, this concept of house hacking.
Mm-hmm. No, it is. That's interesting, to where you really can turn the faucet up as high as you want, because it seems like we're almost in 3 different categories here, to where, or not categories, but levels, to where Jerry is renting out every single room that he has, and he's making some good money, and he's loving his situation too, so he's not necessarily sacrificing anything for that. Mm-hmm. You decided not to rent out your guest bedroom in your new house you were originally going to, so you'd be making more money, but you decided to choose the quality of life of having the whole unit all to yourself. So you're making slightly less than you would have. And then, like you pointed out, Kim and I, we do still have a mortgage payment, or we still have a housing payment, but we have this house that is way too big for us that we get all to ourselves, you know, and we have a guest bedroom and a large office that we could also choose at some point in time to rent out if we wanted to turn on the faucet a little bit higher. But that's the other thing that's really nice is you can adjust this to your current situation. And if you need a little bit more money, you can turn on the faucet, rent out another room. But if you're comfortable and you want the extra space, you can also do that.
Yeah.
That's also that is really important to point out, because I feel like there's probably a lot of people that have families that, you know, are thinking this is more geared towards a single guy or a single girl that are willing to live with people. But just like you're saying, you could have your own separate living space and have a separate entrance to a basement where you don't really see those people. And that's, you know, I have 2 little girls, so I'm obviously not going to be renting out an extra bedroom in the same living space as I would be in or my girls would be in. So you can definitely make it work. You just got to find the right property. Also, like, strategically plan your loan. Make sure you can do it. You can put minimal down, which is awesome. And that's obviously, I'm going to be doing that as well and be taking advantage of that program. One thing that Brent did, I want to just touch on real quick, is the lender paid mortgage insurance. So you got a pretty low rate and you have no mortgage insurance. You want to talk a little bit about that? And
yeah, sure.
how
I'll
that
touch on
works?
that real quick. And I always say when we start talking about these things, for one, I apologize if it goes over your head. But two, if you're a really analytical person and you want more information, reach out to us. We'd love to talk at you some more about this. But mortgage insurance can be paid on a conventional loan in a variety of different ways. The 2 most simple would be to pay it monthly, which most people do. So you're making, as part of your mortgage payment, you're making a payment every single month for mortgage insurance. The other way would be to pay it all up front. So on an insurance policy, most of the time you have the ability to pay it over monthly, or you can pay it all at once. Same thing goes with mortgage insurance. So in this case, the lender, which is Fannie Mae in my case, is willing to pay the full insurance premium all up front on my behalf if I take on a higher interest rate. So in my case, the full policy probably cost them something like $10,000 would be my guess. I didn't actually price it out, but so Fannie Mae wrote a check for $10,000 to probably Essent or Radian or MGIC, one of the mortgage insurance companies, and now I'm covered for the life of the loan. But for the life of the loan, I took on about 1/4 to 3/8% higher interest rate. So my payment's a little bit higher than it would have been without mortgage insurance. The good news is I can write off the extra mortgage interest off my tax returns. I'm not able to write off the mortgage insurance. So I believe right now the current law is that if you make over $94,000, you cannot write off any mortgage insurance. So if you're someone out there that's making over $94,000 and paying mortgage insurance, unfortunately, you can't write off any of that expense. If it's in the form of mortgage interest, you can write it off above that amount. So that's why I chose to do so. I still get to write it off my tax returns. I got a nice check from the IRS this year. So that's my personal strategy. But
Yeah, and I guess it has to obviously fit your situation. This is obviously a good situation for people that are living here for a couple years and they maybe get transferred by their employer quite a bit. So that's obviously a great option. Or if you're not really planning on staying in this house, you're planning on selling it in the next 3 years, that's a good option. But if you do plan to hold it for 30, it works, conversely in the, I guess, worse for you depending on what you do, unless you refinance, because you end up paying more on the mortgage over the life of the loan.
Yeah, and I think eventually I'll probably refinance to a 15-year mortgage to have lower, significantly lower interest on that. But who knows? We'll see. It fits my situation right now, so it works out well. Mm-hmm. But I'm curious, since we were talking, Mike, about your guest bedroom that you thought about renting out, what do you think about having the whole unit to yourself as opposed to renting that out? Do you ever think about renting it out?
Yeah, I do. I mean, it's definitely, I think if I found the right person, maybe a friend of mine or someone that I knew that was pretty easygoing, if they wanted to take that extra bedroom that I have. But I mean, I own a small business and I, like to work after hours, whether it's be, on my own business or my personal investments or looking at different real estate investments. I like to have a home office. So I basically took that second bedroom in my first unit, the unit that I occupy, made it an office. So I mean, for me, it's worth it to have that office space and to be able to get work done there. I mean, if I didn't want the office or wasn't a big deal to me, I didn't see the value there, I could easily rent that bedroom out, probably for, I don't know, it's pretty close to Denver. Like I said, 5 minutes from Rhino, 5 Points, like 10 minutes from downtown, you know, $5-10 Uber ride, which you really can't beat that. I could probably rent it out for, you know, $800 a month. And in that case, you know, I'd be making significantly more cash flow on my investment, real estate, my properties every single month. But for me, right now, I'm comfortable enough where I don't need to rent that second bedroom out, but you can certainly leverage that concept and get a little more cash flow there if you wanted to.
Mm-hmm. So if the right person comes up, you'll rethink about it.
Yeah, and I think eventually, I mean, my goal is to buy probably, you know, roughly another house every year or two. So I'm not going to be in this house forever. Kind of, you know, I moved into this house, made it my primary for funding purposes. You get a better rate when it's going to be your primary household, primary residence. You know, my target is to buy another house here in Denver, probably, you know, December, January, February of 2018, and I'll rent out both of these bedrooms in my current units, you know, for $700-800 a pop, and move into the next place and kind of replicate the strategy.
Nice.
That's the way to do it.
You're probably always looking, aren't you? Just for the heck of it.
Yeah, I mean, you have to get a feel for the market too, and I mean, it's just tricky in Denver. You definitely have to get creative. I mean, that's why a lot of people are afraid of buying in Denver. Like we said, I mean, prices seem so high that, you know, investors or individuals both wonder how they can make these payments and how they can make it work. So you really have to look for a specific type of house that has different features that will make it, you know, financially feasible, and just, you know, let you optimize this strategy to, you know, really positively impact your bank account at the end of the day. So again, like Brent said earlier, any questions on this, we're happy. I love helping people. That's why I got into financial services. That's why I'm on this podcast, helping these guys out. And it doesn't help that they're great guys, but it does help that they're great guys as well. But again, any questions, any way we can help, definitely feel free to reach out.
So are you on social media? You have Facebook, Instagram, anything like that? Brent mentioned that you're a handsome fella, so I'm sure a lot of people are going to want to see the
He's
face.
single too. He's crushing it out there. Ladies beware.
Yeah, I'm on Facebook, Mike Brockway, Instagram, LinkedIn, all that good stuff. Or you can email me, pretty easy, michael.brockway.co for Colorado @gmail.com. michael.brockway.co@gmail.com.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on the podcast. You have anything to close on?
No, that's it, man. You don't want to talk at all about your side business you run? Tent rentals?
Yeah, I got a little side business too. You know, first off, thanks for having me on the podcast. We'll close with this. Maybe we can talk about a little more about, you know, side businesses, alternative investments, whatnot in the future. But as a little teaser, I do have a side business, and it really, you know, created itself when I moved out here from New York. Took a risk, didn't have a job, so, you know, me and a couple of buddies, friends from high school that were also out here, basically said, hey, let's start a business, let's do something, let's generate some income on the side, you know. And we basically went out there and bought, you know, 3 tents, event tents for, you know, you see those big white wedding tents people rent out when they get married, or they're having a barbecue or a backyard party, graduation party, whatever it is. You know, don't want to give away too much here, but break even on a tent is pretty good, about 4.5 rentals. And you can go out there and spend a couple hours setting up and taking down a tent and, you know, make about $1,000 in a weekend. So, I mean, obviously there's a lot more to that, getting your name out there, the marketing, the insurance, all the different aspects that I kind of learned during my MBA program, which, you know, I'm happy to be leveraging some of that education I paid for. But really it comes down to just going out there and doing it. I mean, having that mindset, being able to go through the trial and error to start something up that, you know, I'm not passionate by any means about tent rentals, but it's cool to have your own business and to run it and to manage it and to see that cash coming in and hitting the bank account and just reinvesting in, you know, yourself and your business and having that cash and like liquidity to pursue other investments like real estate.
Sounds like you're doing a lot of things right.
Do you think there's somebody out there that's passionate about tent rentals?
I'm sure there are.
Like, man, I just love it. I go out there and set them up for these people.
Actually, I got a buddy Paul back in New York, and he he's crazy about tent rentals. His parents own a tent rental company, and he texts me all the time. And I'm like, listen, man, you love tents that much? Come out here and you can have half this business and just run it. I don't even want to set these things up anymore.
He's like, man, have you seen what they're making those new tents out of? This is high-tech stuff.
He loves tents. He just likes business too. Think outside the box thinker. So I think any type of business, can get you excited at the end of the day.
Dig it. Thanks for being on, man. As always, you can find us on the podcast app, Transcending Lending. We are also on Instagram at Mortgage In-Laws, and both on Facebook with our names, Dillon Herrera and Brent Blankenberg. And website, BoulderTentRentals.com. Mike's website. Check it out.
Getting married, throwing a party.
Get yourself a tent.
Yeah, the first time I heard about that, I was like, what the hell does that even mean? So I'm sure a lot of people are going to be like, what does he mean tent rentals? Like, what does he do? So go check it out.
Do many people think that when you say Boulder Tent Rentals, you mean like more bold? Like our tents are more bold than the other tents?
We are pretty bold, I'll say that. But, we got Boulder Tent Rentals, we got Denver Tent Rentals. It all comes back to the marketing aspect, getting a good, easy, straightforward name. Best piece of advice I can probably give when it comes to starting a small business. But yeah, if you shoot us an email, tell us you heard Mike on the podcast, we'll hook you up on a tent rental.
Sweet. All right, well, thanks, man, and we'll have you on again if you're willing to do so.
Hey, love it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Transcending Lending. For more episodes, subscribe on YouTube or your favorite podcast app, or visit our website at transcendinglending.com. Tune in next week for another great episode.